I got my HOA president arrested at her own meeting. My HOA president tried to fine me $15,000 for a vegetable garden. 3 months later, she was being escorted out in handcuffs while I stood at the podium reading her own violations out loud. So, for context, I bought my house in this suburban Florida neighborhood about 4 years ago. It's one of those cookie-cutter communities where every house looks identical and the grass has to be exactly 2.5 inches tall or someone loses their mind. I'm talking beige houses, beige fences, beige lives. The HOA here was intense. But honestly, I kept my head down, paid my dues, and tried to stay under the radar. The president was this woman named Patricia. Mid-50s, never worked a day in her life according to the neighborhood gossip, and she treated the HOA like it was her personal kingdom. She'd drive around in her white Lexus with a notebook, writing down violations. Someone's trash can visible from the street? Violation. Christmas lights up past January 2nd? Violation. A kid's bike on the lawn? You guessed it. I mostly avoided her until last spring. My wife and I decided to plant a small vegetable garden in our backyard. Tomatoes, peppers, some herbs. Nothing crazy. It was fenced, completely invisible from the street. And we checked the HOA rules 3 times. Nowhere did it say we couldn't have a garden. We even made it look nice, with raised cedar beds and a little stone path. 2 weeks later, I get a letter. Not just any letter, a certified letter informing me that my unapproved agricultural operation was in violation of the community aesthetic standards, and I had 10 days to remove it or face a $500 fine per day. I was furious. I went to Patricia's house to talk it out like an adult. She answered the door with this smug smile and said, "Oh, the garden man. Yes, it's gotta go. It attracts rodents and lowers property values." I showed her the rule book. She literally waved it away and said, "I decide what the rules mean. That's why I'm president, and you're not." That's when I decided I was done being nice. I requested a hearing with the HOA board, which was basically Patricia and her 2 spineless friends who nodded at everything she said. At the hearing, she tried to add landscaping violations, said our fence was the wrong shade of beige, claimed our mailbox was crooked. She was making stuff up on the spot. Then she hit me with the big one. She'd calculated that I owed $15,000 in fines for continued noncompliance dating back months for violations I'd never even been notified about. I walked out of that meeting, and I'll admit it, I cried in my car. This woman was trying to financially destroy us over vegetables. But here's the thing. I'm an accountant. I'm good at spotting irregularities. So I filed a public records request for all the HOA's financial documents. And oh man, did Patricia not want to give those to me. She delayed it, claimed some were lost, but eventually, she had to comply. I spent 2 weeks going through every transaction from the past 3 years. And there it was. Patricia had been writing herself checks from the HOA reserve fund. Landscaping expenses that never happened. A $8,000 emergency roof repair for the community clubhouse that was never done. She'd embezzled over $90,000. I didn't go to her first. I went straight to a lawyer, then to the police, and finally, I called an emergency HOA meeting and invited every single homeowner. I stood up, presented a PowerPoint with every fraudulent transaction highlighted, and watched Patricia's face go from red to white to gray. The cops showed up 20 minutes into my presentation. Turns out my lawyer had already filed the report. They arrested her right there in the community center, in front of 40 neighbors she'd terrorized for years. People actually clapped. She tried to fine me into submission. Instead, she's looking at felony charges, and I'm the new interim HOA president. First order of business? I dissolved half the stupid rules, including the one about vegetable gardens. Now 3 other families have gardens too. Turns out, when you try to bury someone, you better make sure they're not holding a shovel.